Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Saturday Sermons. My name is Tanya Boyd, and be presenting the sermon today. It's titled Heart and Soul, and it's with permission from my cousin who authored the sermon. So my thanks to Peter Orchard for this. The concept of viewing the heart as a mechanical pump is so absurd. It is difficult to understand how it held credence for so long, wrote Dr. Martin Mendelssohn in 1928. Close investigation reveals a number of reasons why perceiving the heart as a pump circulating blood throughout the human body is faulty and is at odds with known science and physics. The heart is an organ weighing only 300 grams and roughly the size of a fist, and is not physically capable of distributing approximately 8,000 liters of blood a day throughout a body at rest and substantially more through physical activity. This amount of work equates to the equivalent of lifting 450 kilograms to a height of 1,600 meters. It is not feasible that an organ of this size and strength could continually perform its function 24 hours a day, decade after decade. The thickness of the left ventricle muscle wall is approximately 40 millimeters, so 4 centimeters thick, while at the apex of the ventricle, the wall is around only 2 millimeters thick, an anatomical fact rarely illustrated in modern physiology textbooks. The normal, constant, and excessive pressure that the heart would need to generate within itself in order to maintain sufficient pressure throughout the body and on its periphery would cause the thin wall at the apex to rupture. An additional impossibility to consider is that the blood has 5 times the viscosity of water. The blood is unable to develop a force that would be required to pump blood through an estimated 40,000 to 90,000 kilometers of extremely fine capillaries. Some capillaries are narrower than a red blood cell. Thus, the heart alone is not capable of creating and sustaining the blood circulation. A further inconsistency occurs when blood leaves the heart through the systole phase. When liquid that is under pressure is passed through a curved tube, the greater the pressure, the straighter the tube attempts to become. Imagine a coiled garden hose that is suddenly filled with water. Note how or remember you must have seen this, how the hose attempts to straighten itself out, seeking the path of least resistance. If the blood was being pumped out of the heart under pressure, then there would be a natural movement of the aorta attempting to straighten out, and the curvature of the aorta would decrease. Strangely, though, what in fact occurs is actually the opposite. The aorta increases its curvature. This indicates that the aorta is undergoing a negative pressure and not a positive pressure when blood exits the heart. The heart pump pressure propulsion model of blood circulation is very incongruent with the mechanics of fluid flow. When a pressure pulse is applied to a viscous fluid in a closed system, the liquid initially resists movement due to its own inertia caused by viscosity. This causes the pressure inside the system to peak before fluid viscosity peaks. Inexplicably, in the aorta, the opposite happens. Peak flow precedes peak pressure. Clearly, the heart muscle, containing approximately only 100 cc of blood at a time, is not solely responsible for circulating the blood throughout the physical body. So what is? In 1917, Rudolf Steiner boldly asserted that the heart has nothing to do with pumping the blood. The heart has nothing to do with pumping the blood. According to Steiner, the study of embryology provides insight into circulatory physiology. There are two aspects of interest here. Firstly, blood starts circulating before the physical heart is formed. Initially, the embryo's blood is formed outside the body in the blood islands of the yolk sac. Blood then travels from that yolk set to the center of the embryo's body and concentrates in the center, which then begins to pulsate. Some of the blood cells lengthen and thicken and shape themselves into vessels, which finally form the heart. The blood has its own vortex, which determines the shape of vascular channels. Thus, blood flow exists before the heart exists. In videos of that beating embryonic heart, it can be seen that when the blood is boosted by the pulsating heart, no turbulence is created. This suggests that the momentum of the heart and the blood is in phase. In experiments with the larvae of toads, the heart was reversed by 180 degrees to see if the direction of blood flow changed accordingly. It did not. Only the heart reversed its activity. It is clear then that the blood flow affects the heart's function. When the heart was removed from the chick embryo, circulation continued for a further 10 minutes. No heart. Secondly, these streams spiral due to their own vortices which pulse radially and longitudinally. The spiraling of blood is mirrored by the musculature of the heart and arteries, as both of them move in a twisting motion which augments the momentum of the blood as it circulates. In his book, Flow Forms, The Rhythmic Power of Water, A. John Wilkes discusses the rhythm of the heart. By experimentation and observation, he has noted that when a liquid flows through an opening or constriction that offers some resistance, a state of hesitation or instability may occur and a pulse ensues. The heart is three-dimensional. It's closed, flexible organ with rudimentary vessels that have a shape similar to that of a meander with proportions so that a pulse is supported. This pulse belongs to the nature of flowing liquid. Once initiated, the flexible and muscular build of the heart supports the tendency to rhythmic movement by means of intermittent contraction. Through suction and pressure, the process of regulation and movement is maintained. The heart is capable of regulating the stream of fluid passing through by virtue of its resistance to the stream. The continuing decreasing dimensions from aorta to capillary constitute an efficient braking system. Steiner summarizes by suggesting the blood is propelled with its own biological momentum, as can be seen in the embryo, and boosts itself with induced momentum from the heart. Pressure doesn't cause the blood to circulate, but is caused by interrupting the circulation. Steiner continues, the activity of the heart is not a cause, but an effect. The heart does not resemble a pump, but should be considered a dam-like organ. So what gives rise to the initial circulation? Steiner stated that the feelings of the human soul give movement to and drive the circulation. The soul gives impulse to the blood, and the heart moves because it is driven by the blood. Psychological aspects affect the blood circulation. Anger and shame causes blushing by sending large amounts of blood to the periphery of the body. Fear and anxiety cause the blood to withdraw into the interior of the body. If a person intends to move a limb, blood flows into the appropriate muscle before the movement is carried out. If one imagines a tasty dish, the mouth waters because blood flows into the salivary glands, causing the saliva to flow. This is in agreement with Steiner's statement that the human soul and spirit are the actual impulses of the blood circulation. A more modern author, Dr. Christine Northrup, in her book, The Wisdom of Menopause, says that women's brain connections to the heart are different than men. Men's brains are more lateralized than women's, which means that in general, most men use only one hemisphere at a time, usually the left, which is associated with linear, logical thinking. And she suggests that women use both hemispheres simultaneously and therefore have more frequent access to the right hemisphere, which is associated with emotions and intuition. This is a generalization, of course. There are more neuronal connections between the heart and the right hemisphere of the brain than the left hemisphere. So in any given moment, a woman has a greater neurological and emotional connection to her heart than most men do. The feelings of the soul give rise to the movement of blood. The soul drives the blood, and the heart moves because it is driven by the blood. Heart transplants further show how the soul influences the circulatory system. Apart from the difficult moral and theological issues associated with heart transplants, the patient's reaction to the transplanted heart reveals new aspects of the human constitution. Essentially, the human body rejects the transplanted heart organ sooner or later. The body's natural reaction to a new, healthy but foreign organ is its attempt to reject it. It's not like a lifeless car that now accepts a new carburetor. The new transplanted heart may be immediately rejected. In other cases, after time, the new and healthy and often much younger heart begins to show the same symptoms as the original diseased heart. This suggests that the diseased organ is not the cause of the illness, but rather the result. Organ exchange cannot be said to constitute a cure of the illness. Most alarmingly are the personality changes. It has been documented that family members and friends observe a partial loss in the individual ego of the patient. In extreme cases, family members have reported complete personality changes, such that they can hardly recognize the person. The change of personality happens only in the case of heart transplant patients and not in the transplant of any other organs. The heart is, after all, the organ of the human ego. So the body rejection of the transplanted heart manifests in three different ways. 1, it may reject the new heart at the onset. 2, the rejection may appear as the recurrence of the original heart's illness. And 3, there is often a marked change in the personality. Steiner summarized as follows. In the body's rejection of foreign organs, an organization of forces is revealed, which brings about a unified working together of the living organism. In anthroposophical science of the spirit, this working together of the forces responsible for the manifestation of life is called the etheric body. Because our thinking is very much conditioned by our physical senses, and our physical senses understand the idea of a pump. We understand that things can be represented physically. We do not yet comprehend the fact that the spirit directly affects certain kinds of matter. The first thing to realize is that the organs of the body and the body itself and what it does, the physiology of it, is a direct expression of a spiritual and soul activity. I'm going to say that again. The first thing to realize is that the organs of our body and our body itself and what it does, the actual physiology of it, is a direct expression of a spiritual and soul activity, partly to do with the human being itself and partly to do with spiritual beings of the world, because we are not separate. When Steiner speaks of the organs of the body, he speaks of them in terms of, firstly, what spiritual elements are they a reflection of? And there are four elements: the physical body, which is spiritual in origin, the etheric body, the astral body, which is the body of consciousness, and the ego, which is the I body. The whole central nervous system is a direct expression of the astral body, which is what we really live in. We live in our consciousness. Within that consciousness is the I center. The I's most intimate expression is the blood. The blood is the vehicle for the ego vehicle. The I is the cognitive, spiritual center of the soul, the spirit. The blood is the expression of the ego. The other thing that must be borne in mind is that the human organism is basically a polar organism. The head pole, which is the thinking, and the cognition pole, and the will pole. And these mediate together to create a middle, which is the feeling. And this feeling stems from the middle. So on one extreme, you have thought and consciousness and perception. All the organs of perception and the central nervous system are seated in the brain, which is the center of the central nervous system. And it is also where thinking and cognitive awareness occur. This is the place that we are awake or aware. The opposite of the pole is the will. We never actually sense it properly because, unlike being awake in our consciousness, it is perpetually asleep. It works in our digestive organs. If you go below the diaphragm and you get the organs of digestion, a person who has a weak will usually has a weak digestion. All the organs down there, as well as the limbs, are a direct expression of the will. We do not sense the organs of the will, and we do not know what they are doing because that part of our consciousness is asleep. In between those two extremes of awakeness, you have the middle organs above the diaphragm. Rhythmic circulation and rhythmic breathing, these are the organs of feeling, and the conscious level of these is dreaming. We perpetually dream in the middle of our organism. If we are awake in our head organism, we dream in our feeling middle organism, and we are asleep in the will organism. When we speak of the heart and the blood, we are speaking about something that has not quite yet come to consciousness yet. There is a part of the middle organism that does come slightly into consciousness with meditative breathing. And if we take a deep breath, we can let it out consciously, but we cannot do that directly with our heart, as our heart is deeper in our subconscious. Man today, though, cannot guide his heart at will. When anxious, it beats faster since the feeling acts on the blood and quickens the motion. At a higher stage of evolution, the heart will be in man's control. It is interesting to note, though, that the heart is also anomalous, as it has diagonally striped fibers that are otherwise found only in voluntary muscles. This is because the heart is an organ of the future, and in the future it will become a voluntary muscle. In the future, the heart will become an organ of consciousness and spirit. Right now, the brain and the central nervous system act as mediators of the spirit. At the moment, the heart is still an organ of perception because it perceives. It actually senses the blood and all aspects of circulation, but this is beneath our level of consciousness. The heart takes the pulse, and as we know from Chinese medicine, there is a tremendous amount that can be learnt from the pulse. What the Chinese doctor is doing consciously, the heart is always doing unconsciously. It is always perceiving what is going on in the organism. It does not yet perceive what is going on in the environment, and it is not an organ of consciousness yet. Some food for thought, wouldn't you say? I was really excited to delve into that learning, and the more you listen to it and consider the points, the more true it becomes for you. So thank you, everyone. I wish you well. This is the first of the new year, all of the excitement, all of the promise that it holds. I wish for you a great depth of understanding about yourself, your relationship to the world, more soul connections with people, and looking forward to listening to what you share this year. So thank you, everyone. Go well. Bye-bye.